If you're looking for a strong title to get lost in, this game is going to raise all kinds of flags. In today's humble opinion, we're taking it day by day in the Banner Saga. Now, I hate to break your hearts, but the Banner Saga is not a Japanese reimagining of the Incredible Hulk's war on whatever it is he wars on. I'll be honest with you, the only thing I actually know about the Hulk is that his name is Bruce Banner, and that's good enough for the joke. But worry not, for your hearts will not long be broken, for what it is far better. The Banner Saga is a video game masterpiece developed by Stoic and published by Versus Evil, and when I say that it's a masterpiece, I mean I'm hard-pressed to find anything unlikable about it. It's a combination of trailblazing RPG, by which I mean it reminds me of games like Oregon Trail or Oregon Trail, and turn-based strategy. But it also has some elements of story-driven adventure games in that you choose from various dialogue options that can alter the way things play out in-game. Blend that together with what looks to be a beautifully hand-painted and animated aesthetic, mix in an engrossing story that sucks you in immediately, and sprinkle on some intelligent mechanics that require thought and execution, and you've got yourself a recipe for greatness. The story itself seems to draw inspiration from Norse mythology and Viking culture. Not that I would know myself, I can't keep up with the Incredible Hulk. Do you honestly think I'm gonna fare any better with Thor? It also has some of the elements that makes Game of Thrones so interesting, such as the shift to and fro between various protagonists, the threat of looming destruction by way of a merciless undead forest long since thought banished that now encroaches on the borders of safety, and a sprawling lore that lives and breathes beneath the surface of the game that brings the world to life and grants the characters more dimension than many other titles can boast. At any given time, the game takes on three different forms. The first is your geographical location. Sometimes you'll be traveling where events will periodically pop up for you to interact with from time to time. But more involved perhaps are the places that you stop, be they camps that you set up or towns. Here is where you'll access shops to buy supplies, tents to practice with your heroes, and a lodge where you can rest. Occasionally, character portraits will show up here to trigger small scenes between the one you're controlling and the one you're talking to. You, of course, will get to choose branches of dialogue that will better illustrate the characters, their relationships with one another, the lore of the world, or the situation currently at hand. It's in scenes like these that decisions on future plans of action will be made, which also makes these key moments that cement in the consequences and thus the path of the story. The third form that it takes is that of a turn-based strategy, and a delightfully complex one at that. Rather than have each faction square off entirely at a time, there's an order that you can see at the bottom of the screen. This is one of the aspects that demonstrates how the game is easy to pick up but difficult and rewarding to master. Many, like me, will either ignore this for the most part or will fine-tune their strategies at the last moment. Skilled players, however, will inspect and think about every turn coming up. Perhaps they'll ignore enemies that are going to do damage regardless and focus on tearing up an enemy that strikes last before it has the chance, thus reducing the numbers of enemies overall. Or maybe they'll figure out which ones are the weakest and allow those to soak up a place in the rotation wheel while they handle the heavy hitters and give them fewer turns. The decisions are slightly complicated by the inclusion of an armor mechanic, meaning your attacks to their health will be diminished if their armor is above a certain threshold. You'll want to weaken it first in most cases. Other things worth mentioning are that your characters level up based on how many things they kill rather than experience, and that you can use your constitution points to power up your strikes or use special abilities. And also the Varl and other large enemies take up 4 square spaces instead of 1, so keep that in mind for all of your future strategies. When it comes to complaints, the only things that I really have are subjective opinions on what I personally think would make the game better. For instance, I feel like having character death in battles would make it more impactful, though I can see how working that into the story would be almost impossible. Especially if key characters died, it just wouldn't be realistic. However, for a game that feels kind of like Game of Thrones, having key players die off in battle would be amazing and brutal. One complaint that I see coming from others is that the game just isn't long enough, but I would keep in mind that this is an indie title with this tier of quality, and they offer a solid 10 plus hours of content if you're rushing through it. Enjoying it and trying to complete it fully and trying it at higher difficulties will naturally make that longer and better. This one is definitely quality over quantity, and it's excellent in what it offers. Also, this guy looks like the least likable Harry Potter character, Vernon Dursley. Normally, the Banner Saga can be found on Steam for $19.99, but I would say that it's worthy of a purchase for as high as $30. $19.99 seems like a great deal for me, but if you want to get it as low as possible, you can't get much lower than its lowest sale price at $4.99, at which point you should definitely try it. Gameplay for the Banner Saga earns a 10 out of 10, considering that I can't really find any flaws with it. Granted, I might be too enamored by the breadth of the world and the smoothness of gameplay to nitpick anything out, but for someone as nitpicky as I am to be impressed by everything that it does so well is an impressive feat. It may not be the longest game in the world, but it's dazzling visually and the soundtrack is fantastic. The game itself is beyond entertaining. In value, the game earns another 10 out of 10 for its quality in all key areas of the game. It holds your interest, it doesn't frustrate you, and it tells a story rivaling the greatness of those that span several novels. Though it itself is comparable to one novel, it does have a sequel, and I've heard that your decisions in this game will influence that one. And I'm pretty sure there are sequels that will follow that. A game that's so good that it satisfies you while leaving you hungry for more and disappointed in its ending is a rare feat to achieve, so its inclusion in the bundle is a gem. Overall, the Banner Saga earns a 10 out of 10. Put on a headset, sit back in your favorite chair, and lose yourself in a magnum opus of a game. Just don't forget to turn on subtitles because sometimes the accents might be a little rough.